Amazing. So today on Becoming Cosmically You podcast, we have an amazing guest called Jane. And Jane, over to you. Let us know what you do and where you come from.
Well, I originally come from England. I live in Australia now. I live in Queensland, where it's 99% humidity, so I'm slowly melting into the floor. But I came over here as a EA, executive assistant, a student doing a diploma of leadership and management. I'm now an animal intuitive. I communicate with animals. I release their trapped emotions. I talk to them. I talk to alive animals and dead animals, or those that have passed over. And I am a Reiki healer. So I do all of those things, predominantly with animals, a little bit with humans, but mostly with animals. So animals have been my absolute passion for years and years and years. I worked in a shelter for quite some time. And then one of my Indigenous healers actually introduced me to another lady and said, you should do this animal communication course. And I was like, really? What the hell is that? And I actually thought that I would understand the animal language, which obviously was totally not what it was about at all. It was energetically communicating with the animals, and I did it. And she said, the biggest roadblock you'll have is trusting yourself. So I came home and practiced with my cat. And then one day my cat spoke to me. I heard him as clear as day in the back of my head saying, I know my place. And it kind of went from there. And now I'm just building up my business. I'm becoming more and more out there. A lot of people know my name now. And I'm just there to help the animals. That's what, and I'm a changed person spiritually, because we were talking about this just before we came on, of course, that, we've all been sort of controlled into doing things and living life a certain way. And now on my spiritual journey, I do things totally differently and live a very different life and a very happy life now. So yeah, that's what I do.
I love that. I love that someone told you about trusting yourself, because I think through this whole journey, not just building your business, trust is so important to everything that we do, right? It's like what everything is built on.
It is. And also the other thing, as we were talking before about, the way we were all sort of brought up, that you listen in your head, you don't listen to your heart, you don't listen to your gut. And, your gut is your first brain, right? So that's been the biggest thing for me, is to sit back and go, the instant I get that thought, that's the one I go with. It's not, oh, wow, maybe that's not right. Maybe this is right. Maybe we should go this way because, and then my ego kicks in and tries to keep me safe. And I'm like, no, because my gut says this. And, I've probably been about 3 years down this road now for the spiritual transformational journey, I guess. And, now, and there's still days where you think there's a red flag there. No, I'm not going to go there. I think this way, but you go there anyway, and then you realize you're wrong, and that's the thing. It's all about the trusting of yourself and believing your gut, because actually, who knows you better than you? No one, right? So, but I think that's a hard, the healing journey, the trusting journey, it's hard. It's not unicorns and rainbows to begin with. You have to you have to get into the groove, if you like, because you've been transitioned for so long to believe what's in your brain.
Yeah. And also follow people of authority as well. We spoke about this briefly before. Yeah. We're programmed from a young age to listen to teachers, to listen to the law, to listen to have rules, and all these things really stifle our ability to connect with ourselves, trust ourselves, and to just experience, right? And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up to that fact that actually they've got no fulfillment in what they're doing, and they need to change it.
Because it becomes, you become a little bit like a robot, don't you? And it's funny because, as I say, I'm going on this healing journey, and let's be honest, the healing journey never ends, does it? The triggers always happen, and you have to recognize them, and you journal them, you get them out your brain, and then, you know, and you carry on for a few weeks or months or whatever, and suddenly that trigger's there again. And I've been doing a lot of that of late, you know, and one of the things that came up very much for me was sitting in the classroom and being told I was stupid. And, you know, I didn't know, and I'd never amount to much, and to go and stand outside because I got the answer to a question wrong. Now, you know, that has actually stayed with me my entire life until now. I'm healing from that, and that changed me in the way I project myself, in the way I thought about myself, you know, in the and even with the animal intuitiveness, you know, oh, you can't do that. Look at you, little old fat Jane, you know, from school, couldn't ever amount to anything. You know, you don't know anything, you're stupid. And how many times in my brain that would not so much say, you know, you're stupid, but I would sit there and go, you can't do this. Because, like, you know, you're not going to amount to that. You can't do this. And that's been a massive fight for me. And you know, again, this has come from a teacher. You know, and if you go back to the 1980s when I was at school, the teachers, very different to now. They could talk to you exactly how they like. They could smack you around the head if they wanted to. You know, they could be that rude, and it's damaging, right? It sends you onto a path that you don't really need to go down. But in going down that path, you learn to heal, of course. So, you know, there's two different ways of looking at it, but it's certainly been damaging for me until, you know, until I've been able to deal with it in the last few years. So yeah, I'm not a great one for authority, I have to say. I do wonder why we have to listen to one person tell us what to do. The whole world follows. I'm like, I don't understand this, you know, none of this makes sense to me. So in that awakening journey for me, that was probably the biggest thing that I woke up to. Like, you know, why am I doing this? They said it's about this. This is not what it's about at all. So, you know, and then once you start that journey, right, you end up going down a lot of different rabbit holes, and suddenly the world becomes so clear.
Yeah. And you said before about leading with your heart. I think that's such a beautiful point, because we always do that with our clients. You know, we say, you know, we can channel some messages and we can give you the tools, but really the only person that can ever guide you is you. Like, you are your own expert. And I think people have a lot of doubt because they're always used to someone else leading them and telling them what to do, and they're not used to doing it on their own. And yet I see such a beautiful shift happening in humanity now, where people are starting to, like we said before, like, you know, they're unfulfilled, so they're starting to search for what next. Even some really successful wealthy people we've had on the podcast who admitted, like, you know, they bought these amazing cars and have got the most amazing house and life and all these things, and then it just didn't mean anything to them anymore, so they've ended up selling everything, you know, and starting again.
Really?
And
Wow, that's so awesome.
Or people with massive wealth who could buy, like, you know, a car on their lunch break and develop addictions because no one was there telling them to stop, or, you know, that this wasn't going to be fulfilling with them. So we've had some really, really fascinating stories that we've been able to share to kind of give an all-rounded view on what it feels like to be led by your own heart and to be fulfilled, because that inner peace is literally everything, right? You can't actually pay for that feeling.
That's absolutely true. And the energies at the moment, with all the planetary activity that's going on, the energies have been pretty heavy, and, you know, trying to battle your way through them and come out the other end and know that you've done that is pretty, you know, pretty awesome. Like, you know, Mama G is certainly purging at the moment. There's lots of volcanoes and flooding and all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, and then you wake up and you kind of see that what's happened to the earth, you see what's happened to the people. And it's actually a beautiful thing, don't you think, to actually watch someone waking up to that journey and start looking at things so differently and understanding that there's more to life, as you say, than cars and money. And, you know, go for a walk in nature, ground into the grass, you know, like meditate, just be still, just breathe, sit and just look at the trees. I mean, I have always had a real thing about trees. I've always loved trees. I've always cuddled trees. People have thought I'm completely nuts, you know. I remember when I lived in England and I used to work in an office opposite a park, and there was this massive oak tree there, and every single day I would look at this oak tree and it just make me smile, and I'd just be like, oh, this is just so amazing. And when I came to Australia and I started running again, I used to run past a grandpa tree, and I used to call him grandpa, and I would actually stop and put my hands on there and just breathe and breathe that beautiful oxygen in, breathe that beautiful air in, you know, that comes from the trees. And you know, how many people actually sit back and realize just how beautiful the world is and how beautiful nature is and what you can get from nature that, you know, truly, can you get that from money and cars? And, you know, we all have to have it to live, right? I have to work to live. And I do my animal intuitive stuff as well. But, you know, I find what I do with the animals so much more fulfilling. Because you're helping humanity. You're out there with these beautiful animals. You're in nature, you know. So yeah, that's where my life has changed. So I absolutely I love to see people waking up on their spiritual journey. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, me too. I love trees as well. Like we're all tree huggers in my house. So like my kids, they don't even need like any invitation. And whenever they see a tree or you know sort of pretty flower, they'll go and explore it. They'll hug the tree. They'll climb the trees. You know, they love being around things like that. And I just think, you know, that's kind of how we were brought up in the 80s. So being outside, you know.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
One of the good things of being brought up in the 80s is that we had no technology.
That's right. I remember, well, because I was actually brought up in the 70s. I was born in the late 60s. So my childhood was in the 70s. And I remember my mum just like kicking us out at 7 o'clock in the morning, going, go out and play. And I don't want to see you until tea time, you know.
Yeah.
And you'd be out there, you know, rolling around in the mud, just playing, just being in nature, you know, and those sort of feelings very much you forget about them as you grow up, and you suddenly, you know, become so engrossed in this other life that I almost feel like I've regressed a little bit back into my childhood now, where I like to just be out in that, you know, in the garden sometimes when it's raining, just amongst the plants, and you know, just doing my own thing. And here in Australia, the cats can't go outside, they're not allowed to roam. They have to be, yeah, because of the wildlife. So especially in Queensland, I think is worse than anywhere else. But so my cats have got like the Buckingham Palace of cat enclosures out in my garden, because I've got this massive garden. And yeah, you know, I'm incredible. This is why I've got to go to work, because it costs me so much money to put this thing up for there. But I was out there at the weekend with them, and you know, they're running around in the grass and I'm playing with them, and just like, you know, what's better than that, right? It's just amazing. So, you know, whilst I do have to work to obviously pay my bills and all the rest of it, you know, my biggest journey will be the animal intuitive work, so that I can do that and help the animals, help humanity, help people wake up to that spiritual journey. You know, that's how I feel my mission is. Like it's kind of gone, you know, my soul journey has changed, you know, to what I thought it was. Because years ago when I was younger, when I was about 13 or 14, I was fascinated by reincarnation. I absolutely knew that we'd all been here before. I just knew that. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew that. I was able to you know, tell people when they were pregnant before they knew. I would tell them what sort of baby they were having and all of this stuff, you know. And I feel like that was stopped again by authority almost. You know, you can't think like that because it's not right, and we know it's not right. And now I'm back on that sort of path, and I can see that at 13 I did know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know, shutting a child down is not the greatest thing to do. And, you know, just encouraging them on that journey to, you know, think outside the box. How awesome is that?
Oh yeah, totally. Like I was saying to you before, you know, I've been guiding mine since they were 2 years old. Ever since my children were interested in like my stones. We teach people how to clear their energy using just stones off the ground. So as
Mm-hmm.
soon as they became interested in the stones and talking about dreams and fairies and entities and how to protect themselves, we just do whatever we need to do, right? We talk about whatever we need to talk about,
Yeah.
emotions, and it's
Yeah.
challenging at times, you know, because I've had to really up my game, and I've really
Mm.
had to make sure that I can create a bigger container for them so they feel
Mm.
safe. And because, you know, these beings that are coming through into this world are just like huge in their capacity, you know,
Yeah.
what they come to achieve. And I imagine animals as well. You know,
Mm-hmm.
have you like met any animal souls that have been human before, or the other way around?
No, and it's really bizarre because the research that I've done and the animals that I've spoken to, most of the time the animals they stay as animals, but they come back as different animals. They
Mm,
don't tend to come back as humans. And you know, the journey of an animal is to come and teach us. They already know. Yeah, so they're here to teach us. They teach us lessons, however difficult they are. You know, when you lose an animal, it's always divinely aligned, and it's really hard to see how that could be immediately. But eventually, you do see that they're here and they've taught you lessons, and you know, you understand. You learn love, I think, from animals. Animals teach you love. You know, I mean, I'm sure when you were a young child, you probably had a dog or a cat or a rabbit or a guinea pig or something, you know, and you know, that's the first thing you love, right? You've got this pet and you just love this pet. And you know, when I first started on this journey of animal intuitiveness, I was astounded to understand the job of an animal, you know, and how they work and how their minds work. You know, I can have a chat with an animal and it's hilarious. I spoke to a staffy a few weeks ago for one of my friends that I do Reiki with, and she's like, "Oh, can you check my girl out? She's got, you know, she's got this big bladder, and you know, she's got a few issues that she wanted me to look at." And I spoke to her, and she was just like, "Oh, and life is so wonderful, and I'm always so happy, and I just want to jump around a lot." And like my sometimes when I connect with an animal, it can take a little while, and they're a bit shy, they don't want to do it. Other times they come straight in, they're like, "Oh, hello, how are you? Who are you?" And you're just like, oh, hello, you know. And this girl, this dog was just utterly hilarious, and she told me a story about how some people had come to her gate and they wanted her to go with them, and she was like, "I was filled with terror. I didn't go. I was filled with terror. I didn't." And I was like, "Is this even true, or are you threading me a yarn here?" And I actually spoke to her owner and I said, "Look, she's told me this story," and she goes, "That is totally true. We caught it on
Oh,
the camera that somebody had tried to get into the house at some point, and it filled her with terror and da 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 da." And she was just so bouncy and lovely, and just life is just so wonderful. And I just want to see everything. I want to do everything. And you know, when you speak to an animal like that, that's personality is not just energetic. You know, the whole family can see her sort of happiness. You
mm,
know, how wonderful is that? That's what the animals come in to teach you, right? But
mm.
yeah, I've never, what I have done with some animals have shown me what they would look like as a human, which is utterly bizarre. There was a dog that I spoke to many months ago, and he'd got quite a gruff voice. And I said to him, "Oh, you know, if you were a human, you'd be like an old man." And suddenly in my head, there was this old man sitting in an armchair with a flat cap on and a little moustache. And he reminded me of the man that does the Werther's original advert.
Oh
He was
yeah,
like, yeah, but he'd got a little moustache and a flat cap, and he was, and I was like, "Is that what you would look like as a human?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, that's really wild, right? Because it just blew me away that they could show me that. And a little while later, a cat showed me the same thing, what she would look like as a human, and it's really quite interesting. And listening to their different personalities and the way that I can talk to them. Sometimes I'll just get a word and I'll have to go and talk to them several times. And then I kind of have to put it all together, and a little bit like Sudoku, really. You kind of have to work it all out yourself. And other times they'll just go rah, 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 rah. So it's a really joyful job because you never know what you're going to get. And it's really good fun. But some of them have issues, right? And that's the hardest thing, is when they're really, really in a bad way. They've had trauma, and like us, we have trapped emotions, right? I had 100 trapped emotions in my body, and I had them released. And something happens to you, and you hold on to the anger or that grief or that feeling of loss or that feeling of panic or that feeling of terror, and it stays in your body. And the same thing happens to an animal. So I go in and release those as well. And sometimes I've had just like instant changes in the animal, and within 24 hours they've just completely changed, and those issues have gone. I mean, other times it's taken a few weeks. Been working with a cat recently who pulls out her fur. So it's a little bit like human self-harming, right? She gets her comfort by pulling out her fur. And we've taken it back to where it started and why it started. And I released those emotions. And she was bald on one side of her coat on the 2nd of January. By the 29th of January, it had all grown back. She'd stopped doing it. And I was just like, oh my God, this is just so amazing. This is great. And then a couple of weeks later, her owner contacted me and she said, well, she's doing it. She started again. And we had to work out what the trigger was. And I said to her, it's like going to a counselor or a physio or an osteopath. You go and have your first consult, and then you have to go back. There's like different layers. So I think the thing for me with the animals, being able to talk to them is one thing, but being able to help them to be, to give them comfort is just beyond measure. It's just wonderful. It's just so wonderful. And then one day I found that I could talk to animals that have passed as well. I actually brought one in to comfort a dog that I was working with. And I was like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. That's interesting, isn't it? So when you're going on this journey of learning all the time, and suddenly something else happens, and you're like, wow, how did I do that? That's really clever, So I'm always in awe of myself. I mean, for me, and I know you'll understand this, I always say, I'm kind of the bottom of the line here. I've got this amazing team above me. I have my guides, I have my healing team, I have my animal spirits, all of that, all of them are up there. And I'm at the end here, just like delivering the message, if you like, really. So I'm incredibly humbled by that. I don't think I'll ever be not grateful for being given this gift, right? Because it's just amazing. And that's another thing I think you learn on this journey, is just to be so thankful for things that happen to you, and understand that I went through my dark night of the soul, which was the most painful thing ever, but actually it was also the most wonderful thing ever, because you come through the other side and you're a different person and you see the gold. So I feel like that about the animals, and about and even human spirits coming in. And I had a cat come in on a show the other day, and she came in so strongly because the owner's mum wanted to come in and talk to her. So all of those things, that's not something that happens while you're making your breakfast, is it? Do you know what I mean? Suddenly this happens, you're like, oh my goodness, how the hell did that happen? What's going on here? Bloody hell. And so I often spend most of my day sort of going, yeah, what happened now? Also in the same vein, I'm just like, wow, this is incredible, this is awesome. I'm so incredibly lucky, and just humbled by it, really.
Yeah, I love that message of gratitude is so important because
Oh, so important. Yeah.
it's this weird phenomenon I find. I don't know if you relate to this, Jane, but the more that you expand and the more that you connect and the more that you receive these gifts, you actually tend to attract a lot more, but you need it
Mm,
a lot less. It's
mm,
really
mm.
bizarre. Like the more that you can surrender to not needing anything else, the more that you get more. it's
Yeah.
it's such
It's
a weird
trusting, isn't it?
feeling.
Mm. Yeah, and I'm still on that journey, of that, right, okay, I'm surrendering to this, I'm going to trust this is okay. And then, something will happen, and for an hour or so, I will go back into that fear and that ego, and then I'm like, what are you doing? Get out of there, because actually surrender to this. There's a reason for this. There's a reason um that you're able to do, that you've got this. Yeah, like last year I came back from England in April, and my landlord rang and said, yeah, we're not renewing your lease because over here they've got no rent control, so they can put the rent up to whatever. And the landlord was like, yeah, I'm going to renew, I'm not going to renew your lease, I'm going to upgrade the house. And I'm like, okay then. But you can imagine I was actually paying like a reasonable rent, and then they just went sky high, and I'm like, where am I going to go? I've got my 3 cats and all of this sort of thing. So for about 2 hours I went into the depths of despair, and I was crying, and victim mode, oh woe is me, why is this happening to me? And then I went, because I'm going to get something better. And I remember on the Sunday, I'd been out on the Saturday with my friend, and we'd looked at a couple of houses, and I was just like, oh my God, this is so awful. How am I going to do this? This is going to be, and again went into this sort of depth of despair. And then on the Sunday, I was sitting out in my garden, feet on the ground, having my hot lemon. And I just remember praying and saying, like, this is not for me, it's for my animals. Please just show me that I'll be okay. I know that I'll be okay, but can you just give me a sign? And I kid you not, Louise, within 4 seconds of me doing that, I got a text from two ladies that I used to train with in the gym, who were pet sitters.
Mm.
So, show me my cats are going to be okay. Texting me and saying, we're moving out of our house in August. Would you like to move into that? Like this is what we want, and we worked it out, and they were moving out in August, which was when my lease was up, and literally just all fell into place. It was just like so divinely aligned that you're like, how did that happen? But it was within 4 seconds of me asking for that sign. And then and just then that was another notch to just trust, just surrender, it will be okay. And so every time I think of, oh, poor me, I'm now having to pay a bit more rent, or poor me, and I'm like, just remember, like, you're living in this beautiful house now, and look how things have turned out. You will never be at that point, you've just got to trust, you've just got to surrender. So I'm so there with you on that. And I think it's just a lovely thing to be able to do. It gives you a lift in your life, doesn't it?
Mm. And the other thing you mentioned is taking action, taking aligned action. You still
Mm,
have to do something in this process. I think there's a lot of literature and content and so-called gurus out there that kind of tell you just to think happy thoughts or improve your frequency, and it will just happen. And sometimes things do just drop in miraculously, but sometimes it takes you to move your feet first. Like
mm,
you were
mm.
saying, it's like a game of chess. You
Yeah,
have to take a move, and then the universe will match you. And I think people often forget that they are creating with the universe. They're not expecting the universe to do
yeah,
everything for them. And I think that shift is very slight but very, very powerful.
yeah. And I think you almost have to show the universe that you're worthy of it, right? Because you can sit there and go, right, okay, I want this big house, and I'm going to do this, this, and this, and then they put something in your space, and you're like, oh no, that's not good enough. Well, you don't really want it then, do you? You know, it's that thing of, you know, you say you want something, right? We'll give you a test to see if you do want it, and then you kind of don't do that, and they're like, well, you didn't want it then, did you? You know, so it's also working, I think, with the universe and trusting that what you do want, you know, you want, and being honest and being kind and being, you know, and spreading the love. I think, you know, that's a huge thing for me that I've learned. I don't know about you. Well, I think obviously you do that because we've spoken about that before. But you know, before I sort of woke up to this spiritual journey, I was very aggressive, very angry. I was very woe is me. Oh my goodness, what a dreadful life, etc., etc. And now I'm so grateful for everything, but not in a oh well, I'll just say I'm grateful way. Like I truly am so grateful. You know, I journal every day and there's always some gratitude in it. I mean, I'll go to a traffic light and it turns green. I'll go, oh, thank you. You know, it's just being like trying to treat everyone with kindness, you know, paying it forward, that sort of thing. Like, you know, I remember years ago my headmistress saying, I think she wrote it in my autograph book, do unto others as you would be done by. Now, you know, that is a very old saying, but even now it's so true, right? You just treat everyone with kindness, treat everyone with love, and put it out there that you're a good person. And honestly, I think when you live in that space in your heart of loving people, of loving life, of being grateful, being kind, then things will go your way. You just have to believe in it, I think.
I agree totally. And I think that's what we're all created in the world, is just this kind of like life that can be an effortless flow, right? It doesn't have to be about going out and stepping into your masculine energy and hustling. It can just be just taking the next right step. That's why I always say to my clients, you know, tune in every day, ask what is your next right step, and just take that one step every single day. Then you will be consistent, you will bring in everything that you desire. But I think a lot of people struggle with patience and wanting it like right away and right now, and really that's not how it works. You've got to
No,
wait.
and it's yeah, you have to wait until it's there. I remember oh, months and months and months and months, like before they even talked to me about, you know, not renewing my lease. I remember laying in my bedroom in Australia in my old house, and I'd got the fan on and it suddenly got cold, and I was like, do you know what how awesome would it be to have remote control fan, you know, so I didn't have to get out of bed and turn it off and whatever. And then I moved into this house and still got remote control fans. Now, I mean, that's like a piddly little thing, but I said that all of that time, and I don't know anyone, none of my friends have got remote control fans like this, you know, and I'd said that like a year and a half ago or whatever. And then I move into this house that's got these remote control fans, and I'm like, wow, well, I asked for that like a year ago. So, you know, I mean, it's a silly little thing, but it's those little things that are so precious when you actually realize that, hey, I did put it out there and I did ask for that and I've actually got it back, and I've got, you know, the universe has delivered. And it is about stepping into, I suppose it's a bit of stepping into your power, stepping into your beliefs, stepping into the person that you know that you really are, you know, a good, kind, generous, loving person, empathetic, like, you know, and then you just get it back. And you know, I feel like I've been given this gift this lifetime, because that's my journey in loving the animals, you know. I'm all about the animals always. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So, Jane, where can people find out more about what you do, or stalk you in your energy if they want to find you?
Yeah, I love it. I love being stalked. I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram under Pure Soul Chatz, and that's Chats with a Z, so CHATZ. So you can find me on there. You can email me at purechat@gmail.com. They're the easiest ways to get hold of me. There will be a website go up later in the year, but I'm still working on that. I only opened my business page on Facebook like the end of last year. So, you know, so that, yeah, that's how you can find me. And even if you just want to chat about your animal and, you know, see if I can help you, just give me a shout, just send me a message and we can connect and have a chat. And if I can help your animal, then yeah, please just let me know.
I love that. What we'll do, Jane, is we'll make sure that all your links are in the bio
Thank you.
of the podcast, so people can
All
find
right.
it easily. And are there any other messages that you'd like to share with everyone before we stop recording?
No, I think we've said everything. Just always be kind. I think that's, and always just love the world and the world will love you back. I think.
I love that. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop recording now. So I'm going to thank our readers and our listeners and our watchers, and we'll be back again soon, and we'll have a little chat afterwards, Jane.